So prior to painting, the surface of the hull is wiped clean first with acetone to help wipe off any residual chemicals, oils, dirt, grease, anything like that. And what we use are torn t-shirts that we can buy in bulk that are unused, they're new. And then once the boat is wiped down with acetone to clean it, we follow that up right before we go to paint it with tack cloths. And these are kind of a resin-filled cloth that you simply wipe over the boat to get any last-second dust or debris that might have fallen on the boat prior to painting. So when you're painting with Awlgrip paint for the top sides of your boat and for the decks, you're probably going to be using a two-part epoxy paint. And that paint is going to come with a base, right? This is a high build primer base which will form the first coat that you're going to put down on your boat. Then the second part is the converter. These two go together in a 1-to-1 ratio to form a two-part epoxy that then needs an induction time. It needs a 15-minute waiting period for it to chemically bond. After the induction time, you add a reducer. This is a reducer, it's a thinner, basically, to allow you to spray or smoothly flow the paint on with a brush. Now this one particularly can be brushed, but some of the Awlgrip paints are only for spray. The second coat to go on our Telstar 28 trimaran is a sealing primer, which is the Awlgrip 545 finish primer. And what this does is that it seals the surface of the other primers, or that seals the surface of the fiberglass, so that a top coat can be applied, and the top coat will then produce less orange peel or fisheye or other blemishes that can occur in top coat. So this is really designed to create a more uniform surface. This dries more quickly than the high build primer. The high build primer is made with a lot of solids and dries more slowly. This is a little thinner, dries more quickly. It has fewer solids in it. The decks of our Telstar 28 are going to be painted with a Whisper Gray Awlgrip Allcraft 2000 top coat, which again is a two-part epoxy that requires a converter, an induction time, and then it's required to be reduced with a reducer for spraying. The hulls of our Telstar 28 are going to be painted a marlin blue, which is also an Allcraft, an Awlgrip Allcraft 2000 top coat. That again is a two-part epoxy requiring a converter that requires an induction time and then gets a reducer for spraying. Following the application of the pigment top coat, in this case the marlin blue on the hulls, we are going to apply an Allcraft 2000 clear coat, which is again a two-part epoxy which requires a converter and then after an induction time requires a reducer for spraying. Whether it's epoxy primer, the finish primer, or the high build primer, or like I have down here, I have my top coat with the color in it. What you're going to find is that the paint will have separated from the solids. In this case, these sat a few weeks. We opened them up, and what we did then is we pulled out our paint mixer and we simply stuck this in and mixed up the solids and the chemicals together so that we had a nice homogeneous mix. So when you're ready to paint, what you're going to do is you're going to take your base. In this case, this is a high build, an Awlgrip high build primer base, and you're going to take your converter and you're going to mix them together in the ratios instructed by Awlgrip. In this case, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So I might mix a half a quart and a half a quart here. And I'm going to mix those, and I'm gonna let them induce, which is a 15-minute wait time to let them chemically bond. At that point, I'm going to add the correct ratio of reducer, which thins the epoxy, the two-part epoxy, for spraying. And once I thin it, then I can set this up, right? Filter it through a filter into my disposable D-cup system, which then gets set up right on. Of course, you wouldn't set this up right ways up, you would set it up upside down. Gets set up right onto my spray gun, flipped upside down. Now this is ready to spray, right? With a quart of this is a 34-ounce D-cups disposable spray cup, and it would fill this almost up to here. This is a sealed cup, so there is no leakage out the top. There is no vent hole here. This cup will actually collapse down into here as you spray until it's totally collapsed, kind of like a Gerber's baby bottle with a liner in it. And once you learn how to spray, you just need to look up some instruction on how to spray. We'll talk about that later, how to set up your fan angle, how to set up the size of the fan, the distance, the fluid control and the air control and everything, hooking up your regulator down here, so that you can successfully spray at the right amount, at the right angle and everything, and get your spray looking nice and uniform and smooth.